Joe, why did Helen Keller's dog run away?
Why?
If your name was... you would probably run away too. Hey, and welcome to Carnival Personnel. I'm Jacques.
I'm Joe.
And I am not giving up on the Helen Keller jokes.
Isn't this Helen Keller month?
I believe so, so I will have a new joke every day. We'll come here and record just one Helen Keller joke in.
And doesn't Helen Keller month go for 3 months?
How would she know? Anyways, welcome to Carnival Personnel. Right at the very beginning, we're going to give a big shout-out thank you to our good friend Peter, who made the Muppet Sideshow probably without a doubt, one of the best sideshows we've done. That was so much fun. I haven't talked to Joe much the last few days about, since it dropped on last Thursday. There was like twice where I rewound a little bit because I didn't know if you had pulled the clip from the show or the movie or if it was you two doing voices. I'm serious. There was a couple times I'm like, wait, is that him? And then it's like I went back. It's like, okay, yeah, but it was great. That was a lot of fun. Learned a lot.
I learned that I can't really do a good Kermit impression.
But you did so many very good impressions, as did Peter. That was a really, really fun sideshow. Like I said when we recorded it, and like I'm saying now, I'm referring that to the Muppet Sideshow Part 1. How many parts, I don't know, but there will be more.
It could be part 1 of 1. We could do that.
No, it was great. And thank you, Peter, for, agreeing to come to the Nerd Cave a second time and drop some knowledge.
Yes, thank you. And next time we promise we'll pick up that knowledge when you drop it. 2, 3, 4.
Anything big going on with you, Joe?
Gee, Willikers, besides this podcast? No.
So I'm going to start off. I think it was like last night or the night before. I'm sitting upstairs, the TV's on, but it's on mute, and I'm working on the laptop. And my oldest guy, who is not a sports fan, as anyone who's met him knows, he will participate in different sports we sign him up for. He's not horrible at them. He is not great at them. He will participate, but it's not his bag, baby. And so he's downstairs, and there's a TV down there, and he starts like yelling, "Come on, Boston! Come on, you can do this! Come on, Boston!" And in my head, I'm like, what the fuck is he listening, watching? I'm thinking, there's no way. He doesn't know that there's 3 strikes in baseball and 4 balls. Why are there 4 balls?
Nobody's ever asked me that before.
But he doesn't. And I'm like, what the hell? And I'm thinking, is it an old thing? So he's like groaning and grunting like I do watching the Pats. It's like, oh, come on, you can do this. Come on, Boston. He came upstairs like 5-10 minutes later. I'm like, dude, what the hell are you watching downstairs? Oh, the Overwatch League, and Boston's playing Philadelphia. And I'm like, oh my fucking God. Like, he literally was passionately, like I said, groaning or cheering when something happened. And he starts going down the list. It's like, they have this guy who's a pro some ninja character, like going through the different, and I know of the Overwatch League.
Was it Ginsu?
It's not
No.
Ginsu. Gunji. We've talked before about, I found out this is Overwatch League. They mentioned, on sports radio on the Hubhead lines, this happened, and Boston beat Singapore, wherever the teams are from. But it was just so funny listening to him passionately watch and cheer for the local sports team.
Now, would you be more upset with him if he were cheering that passionately for the local cricket team? Oh, I got him.
Listen, AJ, Mr. Price, if there was a cricket team, I don't know. I wouldn't be, because that's actually throwing stuff and not a lot of movement and activity.
There's fresh air involved.
Yeah, exactly.
You might see the sun.
But if you don't see the sun.
Oh, well, take away basketball and hockey. Boo. Bad analogy.
So this week, I don't remember what day it was. I don't remember how it came up in conversation or why I did it. But I decided, The Godfather's on Netflix. I'm going to watch The Godfather, and
For the 50th time.
close. Take away 50
Wait a minute.
and add 1.
Wow.
I've seen bits and parts. There's no way you can not have seen it. And you know all the things about, like, we talked about it recently when, what's his name? Frigoda. It's a famous Abe Frigoda scene that you've seen with Robert Duvall. So you've seen that parodied in other things. Of course, the horse's head in the bed. Like all these famous things. And you've seen clips here and there. But I've never sat down and start for finish to watch like the whole thing.
You watched 1 and 2?
I watched 1 and 2 in the same day.
Good. Great.
I mean, that's 7 hours. Each one of those movies was 3.5 hours. And it was funny. And the second one, they actually had, I don't remember the first one, they had an intermission card.
Yeah.
Like it just popped up and they're like, okay, we got to let these people go, pee.
I forget how long ago it was, but they re-edited both movies for television as the Godfather Saga, where I think did it in chronological order. So it starts off with Robert De Niro coming over, and then at least, so it's all like,
that's interesting.
yeah, and it's called the Godfather Saga. I think there might be an unedited version of that. But, I mean, I'm not going to make fun of you for seeing The Godfather for the first time, in 2018, because I saw them probably in their entirety for the first time in 2016. So it's not as bad as me seeing Star Wars A New Hope for the first time in 1997.
No, that's unacceptable. I don't understand. That's bad. That's bad parenting.
It is.
It almost neglect.
It is. No, it was neglect. Yeah.
And you were a nerd.
Yeah.
Ish,
I'm a dork, but I was a Nintendo nerd. Right.
But not a well-rounded nerd.
No, I was a square daddy-o.
Geez, the making the squares with the fingers was off. No, but I'm watching it. Well, and now here's the pathetic / funny thing. I wake up and something, maybe it was on Twitter, that made me say to myself, I'm going to watch The Godfather. And I bet it's on YouTube. So I just, put into the browser of the phone, YouTube, Godfather, and Godfather comes up. And I'm watching for about 5 or 10, 15 minutes. I'm like, this isn't The Godfather. And then, I looked it up. It's like, it was called A Godfather Story. It was like some mid-'80s trying to capitalize.
Oh, yeah.
I watched the rest of it anyways. It was an interesting story about, a real-life gangster and his coming up and
was Abe Vigoda in that too?
He was not, sadly. It would have been epic. But I did. I go downstairs. I'm like, I'm going to buy it if it's, because I'm quite sure on Apple TV there's a 2-box set, because they stopped at 2, right? They never decided to do anything else. They said, this is enough.
We've peaked.
Just like the people from The Hangover. Like they made the wise decision. We're going to stop after 2.
Just like Ghostbusters.
Right. And well, no, Superman stopped after 3 with Christopher Reeve, and
you're counting the Richard Pryor one?
I am because, I am because it was Richard Pryor and it was fun. And
I only like it because it's referenced in Office Space.
Oh, I love it because, it has one of my favorite bits in it when Richard Pryor had figured out the scam and had all the and the boss of the company, the guy who owns, is like, we will never track this genius down unless he does something galactically stupid. Cut to Richard Pryor pulling in the parking lot in like a Lamborghini or something like this. No, it's not awful, but I'm glad they stopped at 3 and never made a Superman 4. But with The Godfather, I'm watching it and I did not intend to ignore my children that long in an entire day. It was on Sunday, but management, had taken her mom out, taken one of the boys with her. I watched it, and then part 2 comes up, and I'm like, oh, do I really have it in me to sit here another 3.5 hours
and not kill zombies with a shotgun or a bow and arrow?
A bow and arrow guy with it, but I did, and as I had, tweeted out, how have I gotten this long on this planet, was given a film degree, no matter how bogus we want to argue that is, worked in the industry, and not have seen this movies.
You're a fraud and a sham, and we found you out.
Boom! There we go.
Have you seen Citizen Kane?
Well, that is the one. And like I said, when I went to film school, by accident, ended up loving it.
Why do you make quotation marks when you say film school?
Pittsburgh State. I'm told I had a great time there. But I do remember my first assignment had to come in with your 10 favorite movies. And, of course, everybody came in, the Citizen Kane, Dr. Zhivago, all these Eastern European.
The Godfather.
Yeah. I came in with, The Jerk and Caddyshack.
Slapshot.
Blues Brothers. And, I was, treated beyond reproach. How dare I besmirch? And I'm like, these are the movies I want to make. Those movies are great. But I didn't see Citizen Kane until probably 5-10 years after I got out of film school. And then I was like, wow, this is really great. It was a good story. It was groundbreaking about much like with the Star Wars thing. So much like with Avatar now, they're inventing ways to shoot movies 100 years after they've been shooting movies. And it's great that these movies are forwarding technology. So Citizen Kane for a lot of reasons. But with The Godfather, glad I watched it. Glad I watched it back to back. The story is great. It's like you made a Fredo reference a few weeks ago, which I got. That he's kind of the idiot, but I didn't.
Smart.
I'm
It's not like everybody says. That guy, he was in 5 movies in his entire career. All of them Oscar winning. He was in Godfather 1 and 2, The Conversation, Dog Day Afternoon, and The Deer Hunter. And then he died of a brain hemorrhage or something.
Wow.
Yeah. But that was it. He was in 5 movies, and all of them were nominated or won Academy Awards.
And that's the same thing. That's why James Dean was also so revered. He only did 3 movies, and they were all giant, and I forget.
The East of Eden.
Like Rebel Without a Cause.
Yeah.
Absolutely groundbreaking, stomped the presses, and then dies.
Yeah.
Went on top.
Yeah, and then you had, what was the guy from Fast and the Furious? Paul, what's his name? Paul Crashmakar.
Oh,
no,
wow, right.
I'm blanking on
I know
his
who
name.
you're talking. I'm not. You're asking me
I don't
about
know.
names.
You're the film school graduate.
Ish.
Did you see The Graduate?
I did see The Graduate.
Yeah.
So I watched Godfather Part 1 and 2, and then the next day, I watched Heat for the first time.
Oh yeah, yeah. Pacino and De Niro were never in the same shot. They weren't physically in the same scene together.
Really?
Yeah.
So the scene with them at the diner, the famous scene with them at the diner, it's not the shot. I don't remember a 2-shot now that you're saying that.
Yeah, I think it was all shot separately because of their schedules.
Oh.
'Cause this was their first movie where they were actually in together.
I mean, but
they never had a scene together.
We can have spoilers, right? The movie's 20 years old. It's okay to throw spoilers out there. And I remember it's like the great line about, never get attached to something that you can't walk out on in 30 seconds if you feel a heat coming from around the corner. It's such a great line.
Yeah, I've only seen the movie once, so I can't join you on your quoting of The Heat.
But get with it. Why didn't you watch it?
That's
on
Heat. The Heat is the movie with Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy that came out, the comedy.
Which is very fun.
Yeah,
Melissa
Paul Feig
McCarthy's
movie.
great.
Yeah.
But with Heat, and I got to look up who the comedian was. He broke down that great scene with, De Niro and Al Pacino in the coffee shop, basically thanking each other for being so good at what they do because it keeps me on my toes. You keep me on my toes. Bam, where I need to be, right there, blah, blah. And you make me better at my job type thing. And it was a really glowing, you're great at what you do, but I'd have no problem putting one between your eyes if you got in my way sort of thing. And so he's like, can you imagine the same scene with Arnold Schwarzenegger and
sorry, what's his name?
Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Close.
How do you say it?
Schwarzenegger?
Close enough.
Nager. Just say Nager. Make sure you really nail the Schwarzenegger.
Let's not go down the Papa John rabbit hole just yet, sir. I don't want to be thrown off my.
We're on a conference call right now.
Podcast. And Rocky Balboa, Sylvester Stallone. Can you imagine the same scene with those guys muttering through their lines? And it's good. So that was my week. And then just to round it out, I'm going to bring it up because I put it on the list. It's been a decade plus now, and I can't believe it's been a decade or close to a decade since the Chris Nolan, Christopher Bale series started, the trilogy with that. I watched all three back to back over 2 days. Those movies were all 3 hours long too.
Really? Yeah.
2.5 and a half to 3. Great. Absolutely, absolutely great.
I agree.
And I love, what Marvel's done, obviously. We've flown over like, schoolgirls,
Or fawn.
Fawn or flan. 6 of one, 2 dozen of the other.
I like flan.
I like a woman like I like my coffee.
I like my women the same way I take my coffee. Hot, black, with a small piece of prune Danish on the side.
And but I did. I mean, I do. I love Infinity War, Deadpool, Guardians, everything. But those Batman ones, they're completely different, obviously, because but they are so dark and
non-canonical.
I'm gonna have to look up a word now. Thanks.
I know it means that they're not in canon with the DC extended universe.
Yeah, they're standalones.
Yeah.
But the story, the telling of the stories, the characters that they developed. I mean, I truly remember when the first one came out, and it was Ra's al Ghul, who at the time wasn't. If you ask the average man on the street to give Batman's rogue gallery, it's going to be Penguin, it's going to be Joker, it's going to be Riddler, it's going to be Mr. Freeze, it's going to be Catwoman, depending if she's good or bad, it's going to be Poison Ivy. It's not going to be Ra's al Ghul. And so the fact that they went that and created, he was actually one of those it makes sense. Michael Caine as
Alfred.
Alfred was great, and there's 3 or 4 lines in that
and Lucius Fox's character.
It's so great.
Yeah.
Morgan. I mean, my favorite line in the trilogy, and one of my favorite lines in any movie, it's in The Dark Knight when they're going to do a business deal with this Chinese company, and Bruce Wayne falls asleep at a board meeting, and the accountant is really upset, and he complains about it to Lucius Fox, and he's like, "Hey, you just worry about the numbers." He goes, "I did the numbers, so I'll do them again." Yada yada. And the guy comes back a couple days later, and he's like, "I did the numbers again." It's just one-on-one, him in Lucius Fox's office, and he goes, "I saw some irregularities." He goes, "Oh, with the Chinese company?" He goes, "No, with ours." And he goes, "Research and development," and he pulls out the schematics. He goes, "I went down to the files. I started pulling old files, things didn't make sense, and I find this, and it's the schematic to that, series Batmobile." And he's like, "You're going to tell me you didn't see your baby pancaking cop cars and blah blah blah?" And he goes, "Now what are you inventing for him? A rocket ship?" And the guy cockily sits back and he goes, "I want $10 million every year for the rest of my life." And Lucius Fox just puts his hands together and kind of leans forward and says, "So you believe that your boss, one of the richest, most powerful men in the world, spends his nights beating up, is a vigilante, spends his night beating up the worst, most hardened criminals with his bare hands? And your plan is to blackmail this man? Good luck." And he just sits right back, and the guy basically just folds up his paperwork and goes.
You're supposed to be silent after the good luck so that we can play the self-indulgent theater theme, because that was great. I mean, you've told that line
I know
several times, but I don't tire of hearing it from you.
And then the other one, when Bruce Wayne's going to turn himself in, and it's Alfred, this is the moment you get to say, "I told you so." He goes, "I don't want to." And as they're walking out, getting on the platform that rises, he goes, "But I did bloody well tell you." And then he goes, "Well, they're probably going to haul me away as an accomplice." And just as they get on the little pedestal that rises up out of the floor, Bruce Wayne he's looking for it, goes, "Accomplice? I'm telling everybody it was your idea." So there are those moments. But look, Batman's dark, and he's an asshole, and he is, all those things. But and the Tom. Oh gosh, I'm awful with names. I almost want to say Harding, but I know it's
the guy who played
Bane.
Yeah, I forget his name. Shit.
And again, and so when I'm watching it for the 9 billionth time, I know that that's Talia al Ghul, and she's going to literally stab him in the back. But I still am like, oh, God, I can't believe what a great job they did, that it didn't leak out beforehand, that, she played it through right until that moment. You think that she's the damsel in distress and all this stuff. It is.
Turns out.
And I don't know if it was Nolan said, that's it, I'm done, or Christian Bale said, I'm done, or if it was a money thing. I don't think a fourth one would have hurt it, but at the same time,
Three's a nice
great.
number.
It really is.
Yeah. Except for The Godfather.
Leave him wanting more. Leave him wanting more. But
speaking of the Batman, I got to talk to you or get your opinion, and maybe you haven't heard about it, but you have to have heard about it. The standalone Joker Origins movie.
Yeah.
With Joaquin Phoenix.
Joaquin Phoenix. I didn't hate Leto's Joker.
Suicide. Well, they're going to make another one,
in
right?
the Suicide. I didn't. Yeah, they're going to have 2 Joker
There's
characters.
a Harley Quinn movie, right?
But it's the same woman playing Harley Quinn.
Yep.
And this is what's great. It's going to be a low-budget movie. $50 million.
Right. What's the point? I don't get it. What's Warner Brothers' idea? What's their game plan? What's the end game? If they're building this DCEU, why are they? Is this like a Star Wars story, like a Joker story?
Yes, and it's because
we all know how well Han Solo's movie did and how well received that was among the community of nerds.
It made its money back. It made money in the box office. It will make money forevermore. People like me. Yeah, it wasn't great. Oh, it's available on Apple TV. Click. I think a lot of it has to do with, again, go down the list. It's like Marvel has cranked out movie after movie after movie with, again, B, C, D list properties. Ant-Man is not a B list property.
Right, but there's not the third origin movie about fucking Ant-Man coming out. There's a cohesion. There's a game plan with the Avengers and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. With DC, it's kind of like we don't know what the fuck to do. I mean, do we want to be like Marvel? Do we want to be like Star Wars? Do we want to be our own shit? Do we want to go back to the well with Batman for an 8th time? They don't there doesn't seem to be a cohesive strategy, and I don't know. I just don't know where this falls. And I guess it's just more like maybe they figure they have these properties. They know they have a license to print money, and people are going to go see them no matter what.
In the decade since Iron Man 1, what did they used to call World War I before World War II?
The Great War?
When Iron Man, the war to end all wars, when Iron Man came out, it was a 10-year run from Iron Man to Infinity War. And in that time, Marvel has clocked in, I think the number came out this week, $20 billion.
Yeah, we did a sideshow about it.
Yeah,
Check it out.
$20 billion. And the DC people are like, wait, we were the ones who invented the superhero movie. Superman changed everything. Batman, the Michael Keaton, the director, Nightmare Before Tim Burton changed everything. And then they turned everything on the air again. With the Christian Bale Batman, that was the darkest superhero movie ever. And it proved that you could have a really dark, the movie looked dark. It was dark colors. It was dark content. It was dark dialogue. But now they're sitting back thinking, well, fuck, and like with Justice League, they realized how far behind because they didn't fail. They didn't fail with the first Superman reboot. It just didn't make enough money. They spent $200 million on it. It made $350 million at a time when making $150 million on a movie was a big fucking deal. Now, unless something makes $500 million, it's not worth their time to get out of bed. And so DC is so struggling to catch up. It's why, Batman vs. Superman was great. I thought it was great, I like Wonder Woman a real lot, but now they had to squeeze her into the standalone Batman Superman story so they could start the DC, and then they had to lay the groundwork for Flash,
Justice
Aquaman,
League, yeah.
and Justice League. But in that Batman Superman, they're like, oh crap, they got the Guardians, they got 10 different properties they're tying together, and this is our baby. We are the Justice League. Every nerd has grown up on Super Friends. We should have been where these guys are, and now they're just struggling to make it up. And then when Harley Quinn becomes such... I mean, they probably knew she was going to be the big star of that movie. But then again, I mean, what's his face? Will Smith, she completely overshadows a 25-year A-lister guy out of nowhere.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, well, we can go on and on about Will Smith's declining popularity or like declining star power. Like, he's not dead. Like, he's not like, who? Will Smith? That Independence Day guy?
He's not hosting America's Funniest Video like...
Alfonso Ribeiro.
Where is DJ Jazzy Jeff?
I think he got thrown out of the house by cousin Phil, Uncle Phil.
So he's not that level.
Nah, yeah, right. One more thing I got to bring up on movies because I don't want to get into Trump as much as I'm basically stretching our podcast out for the fun instead of the awful. Did you hear the new episode 9 news about casting?
No.
A certain somebody is going to be in the movie, and I don't know if I want to tell you because
tell me. Go ahead.
Billy D. Williams is coming back as Lando in episode 9.
Really?
Yes. So there you go. I'm breaking news to Jacques. Breaking Star Wars news. That's like a week and a half old.
Yeah, but I try to avoid that stuff.
Yeah, it's hopefully that doesn't spoil your experience. Hopefully I didn't ruin your childhood.
You should hide Star Wars information in a book. It's my kryptonite. No, that is great. I got to meet him.
Oh, nice.
He did an episode of That 70s Show. Super, super, super nice guy.
He seems like it.
Couldn't remember his lines.
Oh.
They kept having to shorten and shorten his line.
Did he have to change the name of his character to Billy D?
He
Orlando?
And then they did. They ended up using cue cards and stuff like that, which is fine, but great. Good for him. I mean, that's really great.
Yeah, I mean,
is he in love with a robot in this one too?
I mean, to be honest with you,
did you see Solo?
I did not.
Oh, okay, all right. So I just ruined that for you.
No, you didn't. You can't ruin Solo for me. But I mean, well, think about it. There are really no other, aside from like Ghost, Luke Skywalker. There's no other original cast members to bring back. They killed off Han. Spoiler. Carrie Fisher died.
What?
Yes. Spoiler. And so, like, this is it. Like, he's like the and then Luke's dead. But again, stop. Just stop. So that's it. So I guess the podcast is over. Yay! We don't get to talk about anything else.
You know what? Okay, we won't get too far into it, but it has been an interesting week. I'm quite sure you're up to date on Stormy Daniels' arrest
and return to stripping the next day.
And an apology that she shouldn't have been arrested in the first place. And this isn't fake news. The arresting officer or the guy who set up this.
Was it a woman
sting,
or was it a female officer?
It was, but the person who put the sting into place ended up deleting their Facebook and Twitter account because they were all Trump all the time.
Yeah, of course.
So,
duh.
And here's the thing, moron.
What? I'm right here, Jacques.
You are probably going to get a really nice gift basket from Stormy Daniels because she had pretty much cycled out of the news. I mean, she would be popping her head. I mean, her lawyer is still every single day on CNN, on MSNBC. He was at the protest in London today. But I don't even know what's going on with her case. It has cycled out. And now you put her headline again, which is great because she probably turned around to the next club and said, yeah, double my fee or I don't show up.
Yeah. And in case you don't know, she got arrested in Ohio on the charges of non-sexual contact with a patron, which turned out to be an officer, which was part of some sort of sting operation. Apparently, the officer asked for a motorboat, which, do you know what a motorboat is?
Okay. We've talked about this before, Joe.
They used to call it a Nixoning.
What? What is it I like best about big boobs?
The big boobs.
There you go. Thank you. Do I know what motorboating is?
I knew you knew, but I wanted the audience.
Okay, it's
yes.
But right, and that's the whole thing. It's like, so she got arrested because she said, okay, you can motorboat these puppies. You know,
And she didn't know that this is, I guess it was a law that had been on the books for 5 years and had not been enforced until this point.
shock.
Yeah.
But again, you try to embarrass her, and you can't. Like somebody just recently, I don't follow on Twitter, but somebody had sent me like some of her tweets, and it's great. And somebody's like,
Hey, people calling her a whore.
"Oh, it's like you're a failure." It's like my trophy shelf and bank account.
Say otherwise.
Say otherwise.
Yeah.
It's like, so seriously, her getting arrested only ups her queue higher. It only makes her a more sought after, commodity in the community. So
Yeah, well, well done, Ohio.
stay classy.
They were high in the middle and round at both ends.
Yes, they were. Hello, ladies. Did you watch the hearings yesterday at all?
I saw the highlights.
And there were
The
highlights.
greatest hits.
Dude, they honestly, and when I was doing the list, and Joe and I were talking, because
We're talking about this Peter Strzok.
Yeah.
Strzok?
I was going to let you butcher the name because, I mess up my own.
Scroob?
But so it was great. It was absolutely great. And it was showing why, we probably will or should have a second Civil War, and not just because of the great letters. But truly, it was the most partisan thing I ever remember seeing. And for anybody who doesn't know, it's like, long story short, this guy is a 20-plus year decorated FBI vet. Like, I read a list of a lot of the gigantic cases that he's broken over the 20-plus years. I mean, he was number 2 in the FBI for a reason. He was a decorated, honored, and during the election, he ends up having an affair with another person on it. They text back and forth a few times. I mean, we're talking out of the millions of texts and tweets, or the texts and the emails back and forth and the conversations, a handful of times. He, on a personal, text to a friend, it's like, I can't believe, there's no way the American people are going to let him become president, and I guess, they take like a good Christian GOP zealot would do, is taking Bible verses out of context, took a couple of these text messages out of context.
Some of the texts were, okay. I got them here. He called Trump an idiot in August in 2015, and then texted, God, Hillary should win 100 million to 0 after a Republican debate in March 2016. And he was texting with woman named Lisa Page, who was a trial attorney on Mueller's team. So anyway, this is just dirt that they dug up on this guy.
What ends up happening, and it came out pretty soon in the Mueller investigation, he didn't get fired, but he got taken off the Trump thing. And so now here it is a year and a half later, what every Republican came up and said is like, this shows that the FBI is biased and there's no way Mueller can have an honest investigation. And everybody points out, or he points out, it's like, look, I'm not on the investigation. I was barely on the investigation. And then the GOP's point is, it isn't that they're breaking the law. It's one of those things. It's like, we don't want to talk about, yes, everything that you found is true, everything that Mueller found, but the investigation shouldn't have happened, and it only happened because of this. And the same FBI agent was on the Hillary email investigation. And they're trying to show bias. And this guy, Peter, absolutely more than held his own. And Trey Gowdy, who was leading the charge against him, and the way it works is everybody gets 5 minutes to question him. So if a senator or a congressperson, number 10 only wants to say 2 or 3 things, he can yield his 4 minutes back to Trey Gowdy, who kept hammering about the same points over and over. And this guy was so calm. And he was like, this shows a huge bias and yada, yada, yada. He goes, I was joking in a personal thing with a friend of mine. And he would say, he goes, so like when Trump, and Peter had brought this up, he's like, when Trump had said on national TV to the world, hey, Russia, I want you to hack Hillary's emails. And you said that was joking. I can't joke, but he can, and just called him out on it. He didn't buckle once.
I want to do something we haven't done before on this podcast.
Information?
Yes.
Be smart.
I'm gonna play you a clip, and we're gonna react to it.
Please.
So,
okay, great.
It's a clip that was published today, I think. Excuse me. I think it was a Republican named Raskin. I forget. I don't know his first name, but He's a Democrat, I believe, and he just goes on to remind the public of what Trump has said in the past. What has been said about Trump?
If you're going to play what I think, I was going to mention it, and this will be better. But I think you're going to play. Okay.
Yeah. Well, the tweet. This is from a tweet where it says from a person named Amy Vanderpool, and she says, "Watch Raskin remind everyone that insults toward Donald Trump do not mean deep state conspiracy, as he points out overwhelming Republican hypocrisy." So I'll just play this. It's a 2-minute clip. We can kind of cut it short. Let's see how this works. I don't know how.
No, if it's what I think, you're not cutting it.
In the spring of 2016, Senator Ted Cruz called Donald Trump a, quote, sniveling coward, a pathological liar, and a serial philanderer. Was this attack on Trump by Senator Ted Cruz a coordinated part of a deep state conspiracy that you organized?
No.
On August 8th, 2016, Senator Marco Rubio said Donald Trump was, quote, unworthy of being our president. Was this attack part of a deep state conspiracy that you organized?
No.
In October of 2016, Speaker Paul Ryan said, I am not going to defend Donald Trump, not now, not in the future. Was this fleeting outburst of moral courage part of a deep state conspiracy that you organized?
No.
Former Secretary of State Rex Tillerson called Donald Trump a moron. Former EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt said he's an empty vessel when it comes to the Constitution. Steve Bannon said he's like an 11-year-old child. General H.R. McMaster referred to Donald Trump reportedly as a dope and an idiot with the intelligence of a kindergartner. Karl Rove called him a complete idiot. Representative Duncan Hunter said he's an a-hole, but he's our a-hole. And the director of the National Economic Council, Gary Cohn, reportedly sent out an email describing Trump as an idiot surrounded by clowns. Were all of these vituperative negative characterizations of Donald Trump part of a deep state GOP conspiracy engineered by you and your friends?
No.
I'm going to stop it right there because that was basically the meat of it. I mean, there's another minute of gold if we want to go on, but
no, that was not the clip I thought you were going to play.
Oh.
Somebody else did a similar thing where they're like, okay, I'm going over your tweets. Did you say, or not, I'm going over your text. Did you say on August 18th, 2017, that he's he's a complete moron and under no circumstances has any of the qualities to lead? Oh no, I'm sorry. That was and he kept going over all these Republican people. He goes, yes, but it was your email on this date, and he would read another scathing thing, and it was just half the people were in the room that they were reading these quotes from.
Of course. So, yeah.
And then the other thing that all the Democrats were saying, it's like, we had Hillary sit here for 4 different hearings on Benghazi that totaled her sitting in that chair for 27 hours. There was 0 fault found by the DOJ, by our committee, or by the Pentagon, and she sat here for an 11-hour hearing, 11 hours straight on emails. An email hearing stretched for 2 years, and she honored every subpoena. She showed up, X, Y, and Z. It's like, and nobody has ever been indicted or pled guilty or charges filed. And that's with the House and the Senate controlling, both of those hearings. Yet this witch hunt, and some people had graphs and some people had pictures of all the, they would hold up signs that had the guilty versions or the people who have pled guilty or the charges and all of that stuff. And one guy pointed out, goes, now this is like, and he said, this is like the 12th or 13th hearing we've had on this investigation. We've not had one hearing. What are we going to do to prevent hammering or tampering in the next election? We haven't had one hearing saying, okay, all these things were found out. What are we doing to stop it from going forward? The fact that nobody here is saying that the information that has come out is wrong, that these people shouldn't have been indicted, that these people shouldn't be in jail, that these people shouldn't be on trial. No Republican is saying that. You're only saying we shouldn't have this investigation because 1 out of 100,000 agents and a private text message back and forth said something not half as horrible as every Republican in this room publicly did. Anyways, so it wasn't as awful. It was comedy and it was theater, but that was the best of the clip. That was
the representative goes on to say that this is a kangaroo court and this is just a waste of time. Blah, 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 blah. We all know that. And I guess maybe we can just touch on before we go into our defunct sponsor, the president's visit to London.
Did you see any of that today?
I saw some of the protests.
The Pickley Square one, where is it like Piccadilly Square? Flooded. Like you couldn't see a cobblestone on the ground anywhere. There was that many people.
They love me.
They love to hate him. And you saw, of course, the baby Trump, the crying baby Trump with the cell phone.
I did not.
You
Well,
didn't?
what is it? The floating?
It's a floating thing. It's
Yeah.
about 4 stories tall, 4
Is
stories
that
tall.
that's not a real thing?
Oh, it's a real thing.
Okay.
Oh, no, you can look. You can see them blowing it up. And Mayor Khan, Sadiq Khan, I believe is his first name.
Right.
He had to basically sign off on the permit to say, "Yep, go ahead, fly." It's 3 or 4 stories tall.
Wow.
Because you can see they have it side by side with the double-decker buses, and it's gigantic. But we're talking tens of thousands of people protesting. And what's great is the night before he gives an interview to, I think it's called The Star, like their Inquirer.
The Daily Sun, you're right.
That's owned by the same people
Rupert
who own
Murdoch.
Fox News, right? And he blasts Theresa May and her lack of leadership, and Brexit is falling apart, and all this stuff. And then, of course, when he's side by side with her, less than 10 hours later from when it ran at 10 o'clock at night, and here it is 9-10 o'clock the following morning. He's side by side with her on a podium and just saying he is such a coward. It is not even funny. And the funny thing is, he did a press conference the day before where somebody had said to him, I think it was at NATO, it's like, well, you're saying all these nice things now. Excuse me? You're saying all these nice things now, but when you get on Air Force One, are you going to completely contradict yourself and say that?
No, other people do that.
Right. And so you heard that. And I do. I just want to, before the defunct sponsor. So Paul Manafort, he wrote, his lawyers wrote, he wrote a letter to the judge, and his lawyers, gave it to the judge a week ago saying, the jail he's in is way too far away. He doesn't have adequate access enough to his lawyers, and he needs to be moved. And then it turns out he's been secretly sending emails, which he's not supposed to do, in conjunction with his lawyers, that he has his own suite, his own laptops, he's in a cell, and he's been bragging to people that he's getting the VIP treatment. And so the judge finds this out and said, okay, I'm going to move you closer to the closest jail to us, which is not a country club thing. I will honor your request. We're going to move you to this jail. And I guess it doesn't have Wi-Fi service or any of this.
It actually has bad Wi-Fi service. There's not people fanning him and feeding him grapes.
And so he wrote the judge, oh, no. Ignore that letter when I said this is a travesty and I'm being mistreated and I can't be here. I want to stay. And they're like, no. We take you at your word. So he got moved.
My pen and paper was hacked.
It was moved. Yeah, so the London thing was great. I mean, I'm watching it.
And the other thing I wanted to bring up, I don't know if you saw it, I saw it a couple of hours ago. He kept the Queen waiting for 15 minutes.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh, God.
The Queen.
Of England.
She's been, keep this in mind.
She faced Hitler.
She literally was arm in arm with Roosevelt and Churchill and Stalin facing down Hitler. She was running things back then. That's how many presidents she has been, and this is the first time that's happened. I don't want to sound partisan or biased, but he's a flaming bag of shit that is a constant embarrassment every single fucking moment he is in the White House.
And we're going to keep America great in 2020. And I'm not fucking joking, because I'm sure more than half of the populace out there still thinks I'm a fucking great guy. White power.
It's not half.
I'm sorry. Whoops, I didn't mean to say that.
It's not half. It's less than a quarter of the people, but 50% of people don't vote. So only 50% of people who vote for him. The other 50 that don't vote, it's not even close. But anyways, we're not going down that water.
Right.
But he keep America great. Do you realize that is a slogan in a current movie in theaters right now as we speak?
Which one?
You don't know this?
Nope.
Okay. Do you know there's a prequel out to The Purge?
Oh, right.
And Keep America Great is the slogan that they use to rally behind getting the purge going.
Oh, wow.
I kid you not.
I think I remember seeing that now that you mention it. Wow.
Keep America Great. But yeah, he kept the fucking queen waiting.
Yeah.
Just a complete embarrassing asshole. But hey, at least he decided he was going to try to disband NATO before going and getting his employee review. Nothing fishy about going to see Vladimir and saying, no one's going to be in the room. It's just, I'm not going to do a voice. No one's coming in the room. It's just us. Yeah, no, I see no downside.
It's just locker room talk between comrades.
And how's things going with North Korea? How that's working out. His strategy there pretty much going to plan.
Keep America great.
So
Look over here, shiny.
I don't know if we're even going to have time to spend the money we're going to get from this week's defunct sponsor.
Oh, God, no. I don't even know. It's harder and harder to find defunct sponsors that haven't already sponsored the podcast before.
But think of all the people who will be going out of business because of the tariffs.
Oh, exactly, right. So maybe we can do some future eventual defunct sponsors down the road. But, what the hell? Here's our defunct sponsor of this week.
There she is, the Lark by Studebaker.
A compact with performability.
You know about performability in the Lark?
Yep.
About the new Lark steering system, new brakes, new front wheel suspension, the Skybolt 6?
Sure do.
How come?
I took a demonstration drive.
Figures. You have to drive the Lark to believe it. See your Studebaker dealer tomorrow and take a demonstration drive.
Tell him we sent you.
All right, so this podcast is dropping 10 hours after the World Cup wraps up. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say, Vive la France! France versus Croatia. You got any thoughts on this?
Absolutely zero.
So I've been enjoying the World Cup as we've talked. I could not be more wrong. The World Cup, and you said it last week, the World Cup for me is Navenard Johnson's application to become an astronaut. I've gotten everything wrong but the date of birth. So in the semifinals, it was France versus Sweden, and I was rooting for France. I was rooting for Sweden. My friend Hafen lives there. I like the way they played throughout the tournament. And the other quarterfinal was England, the favorite, a hands-down favorite, playing the smallest country that's made it to the quarterfinals in close to 50 years, Croatia. And it's England, But this World Cup, Germany for the first time since 1954 didn't make the round of 16. The old saying was, well, not old for you. This will be the first time you're hearing it. But for the last 70 years, people have said, football comes down to 11 people on each side kicking a ball back and forth, and when it's all over, Germany won. Because they always did. But this
and
is
Brazil.
Well, no, Germany has not made it to the round of 16. Brazil has a few times not made it to the round of 16 since 1954. 8 years after the liberation of Auschwitz, the Germans took over, the World Cup. But what's interesting, or it's just a point, is England was supposed to beat Croatia hands down. They were winning for 70 minutes of the game, and then Croatia.
And they got crowushed.
And now, so I'm thinking, okay, well, Bill Belichick's family, his grandfather was from Croatia and stuff. Maybe I have a rooting interest for that. But we have this really good friend, Aurélie, in France. Really, really great friend, wonderful person. And I text her and I'm like, hey, congratulations. Where are you watching the game on Sunday? She works for the local rugby team. She works for another sporting team. She does a lot of production work. And she's like, oh no, I hate football. But it's France in the World Cup final. Yeah, I don't care. I'm like, dude, and so the only reason I was like, well, maybe I'll root for France is because of that. And the one truly in French person I know and I'm in contact with is like, yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, and the Coneheads are from France.
And the Coneheads are from France. So maybe for Belzar, I will be pulling. But that was it. Another funny thing, World Cup related, FIFA. FIFA has asked all the broadcasting entities around the globe to stop cutting and ogling at the beautiful fans from the different countries in the stands. Like every time they cut away, it's never like the cute kid. I mean, they cut away to different things, but every time they cut away, they just happen to find the woman who has a Brazil flag on her face, or this whose boobs into the stadium 2 minutes before they do. And for that, I say, shut the fuck up, FIFA.
Yeah, talk about a cock block. What the hell?
Right, exactly.
I mean, not that, football and soccer isn't for women, of course. They're in the stands. But I mean, seriously.
Dude, shut up.
Yeah.
Seriously. What are you doing?
We want you to focus on the beautiful women on the field.
I mean,
man.
And I've said on this podcast a number of times, I don't know if FIFA made it a rule that every soccer player and every team in the World Cup has to be gorgeous, but they are all gorgeous. Why is it wrong to have that icon? Like, you're not taking away from it,
What did they see, like the big, fat, 350-pound Pittsburgh Steeler fan on TV one day and going, we want that!
Yeah, exactly.
That's our fan!
With the flag painted on his, hairy belly.
That's our FIFA!
So yeah, I'll end it on that and just say, hey, just shut the fuck up, FIFA. And it's hard because every single time, like there's been a couple times, like the little guys have been in the room and they cut to one of these pretty girls and stuff like that, and one of the boys say, well, what country is she for? I'm like, I don't know, but that's your new mom. I don't say no, but I was just really, really surprised to hear that. But do you have any? So you don't watch any? And,
Zero.
And your prediction of the game will have about as much accuracy as mine. But I'm going to say France 3-1.
I'm going Croatia just to, because they deserve it.
They do, actually. The 3 games they played to get into it all went to extra time or penalty kicks.
Yeah. So
And they had to come from behind in 2 of those games.
I'm all Croatia.
All right. So now I don't care anything about basketball. You care even less, but I find this funny. There was a guy named Isaiah Thomas on the Celtics. Yeah. Growing up in the 80s, there was an Isaiah. This kid was named after Isaiah Thomas from the Pistons, the Detroit Pistons. He came here in a trade. He had one great season with the Celtics. I mean, he just last year, and then he got traded. He got traded to Cleveland. He got traded to play with LeBron James, who at that point had made it to 7 straight NBA finals, and he couldn't get over it. He literally lost it. He kept having these crying letters published. There's a thing called the Players Tribune. It's a website where professional athletes can post, stuff. He never got over it, but while he was with the Celtics, he knew the following year he was an unrestricted free agent. The salary cap's going up, and they call it a max deal. Like each team can pay one player like $50 million, and he kept saying, "It's like, yeah, I'm going to get a max deal. You're going to have to bring the Brinks truck. And even Danny Ainge said, yeah, it's kind of funny. Like every time he tweets it out and he has a Brinks truck icon, it's like, did he have that made up? Is this his own thing?
He's sponsored by Brinks.
He ended up getting hurt when he went to Cleveland, missed 70% of the season, never stopped whining, wasn't that productive, and he just signed with the Denver Nuggets for the league minimum.
Yeah. I did read a little bit about that. Yep.
And this is how much crazy, stupid money there is in basketball. I think it was the coach for the San Diego Chargers maybe came out today and was like, it's ridiculous that basketball players get that much. Football players should be able to get paid as much as basketball players. And somebody pointed out, you play 16 games, they play 82. You have a 53-man roster. Basketball carries a 12-man roster. Run the numbers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is crazy. It's crazy. It is crazy that it works out like that, but it works out like that. I think hockey players should be the highest paid players. People like Price is Right think cricket players should be. I don't even know. I shouldn't say that. Cricket players might get trillions.
Do they get paid?
I don't it wouldn't surprise me if he hears this podcast. Well, that would surprise me, but it wouldn't surprise me if he hears the podcast and dumbass, they're the highest paid sports athletes in the globe. Because where's that sport the biggest?
In Russia? I don't know.
India.
No. Oh, in India, that's right. Yeah.
And it's like one of the we got 2/3 the world's population. It's like two fifths the world's population is India, and 2/5 is China, and the rest of us are fighting it out for last. Anyways, and last in sport this week in 1983 in the USFL, Michigan beats Oakland for their first title. And Bobby Hebert, who went on to have a legit, not a productive career. He played for the Aints. I think he played for the Aints for 7 years, and then he went on to the Falcons, who maybe were happy that the Aints were in the league, so they wouldn't be the worst team.
So he played for the Falcons right before Deion Sanders arrived.
Right before they were great. Yeah, exactly. So, but he does have. Hey, how many championship rings do you have?
4.
Okay, they have. So that wraps it up in sports. And now we get into, before maybe the video game review of the week, do you have you got a new game that you're playing, a new game that you're getting? Is there any video news before we get to the video game review of the week?
There's always video game news. I mean,
but what will you be buying, or have you just bought?
Well, what I just bought, actually, not too long ago, I picked it up for like $3, $4. The Last of Us Remastered for the PS4.
I will have to bring the oldest one down. He found it. The Last of Us. It was one of those days we went to GameStop and what he wanted they didn't have, or it wasn't out yet. And so in his mind, he was budgeted for getting something. So I told him, okay, you can get this. It was some game on the used wall for like $20-$25. Or you get like 3 things out of that bin that's $5. And he got The Last of Us, and he started playing that this week. And he came running upstairs today. He's like, "There's giraffes in this."
Yeah,
and that you can go over and pet.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I have The Last of Us for the PS3, of course. But and I started playing that for about a few hours, and I'm about an hour or so into the game, and it's a great game. It's supposed to have like a really kind of really upsetting kind of turning point in the end, towards the end of the game. So I'm looking forward to that. It's a rated M game, so of course your 10-year-old is playing it
unsupervised,
of course. So I'm looking forward to that. And the other thing I want to mention is that it's too late now, but the Pinball Arcade for multi-platform, I got it for PS4. I just got into it. It's a crime that I haven't gotten into this earlier. This has been out for years. It's a program that you can, it's like a video game that you can get for PC or Xbox or whatever. It is an emulator for old, vintage, and even more modern pinball machines. Like you can play the actual physical 3D recreations of classic pinball games from like the 60s, the 50s, the 70s, the 80s. So I downloaded a couple of them. One was Star Trek The Next Generation, which is the 90s one, obviously. And then the other one, I got like there's a new Ghostbusters pinball machine, which I actually did play for real last year at the Retro World Expo. But now I have the virtual version. The Addams Family one, there's a bunch of great packs, but I downloaded them a few weeks ago because they were losing their license for Bally and Williams brand arcade games. So all those games were just going away. Like you wouldn't be able to if you download them before the deadline, they're on your machine and you can play them for whenever, as long as you have your machine up and running. But now you can't do it. So Jacques, sorry, you can't play the Star Trek The Next Generation pinball machine. So
unless I come over here.
Exactly. But you can play there's like a new Chris Pine Star Trek pinball. I don't know if you're a pinball guy or virtual pinball.
I want to be a virtual pinball guy because honestly, one of the highlights of actually playing pinball is actually holding on to the machine,
standing up and feeling
like
it.
Hitting the sides and actually feeling the triggers and stuff like that.
Yeah, this is pretty good because it does vibrate the controller when you're doing, you know what I mean? So
do I?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't know. I get some enjoyment out of it, and it's not that expensive. It only cost me $300. But now it's time for the random video game review of the week. Jacques, go to the wall. I'm not going to go look. Try not to trip over the bodies and any other cords that might be on the floor. No, I keep a nice, tidy basement.
I'm going old school. I'm going back to...
Going back to the Nintendo wall, eh? The NES wall. I see you pulled a game off the wall, and it's not Little Nemo. It's not Lunar Pool. Oh God, is it Load Runner? Did we already do this?
No, we did not do this.
It's Load Runner, isn't it? No, it's not Load Runner. Oh, maybe I don't know. What is it? I guess I'm wrong.
You are wrong.
I give up.
It is Lunar Pool.
Oh, it is Lunar Pool. What the hell am I looking at? Oh, that's Mega Man. Oh, whoops. My eyes ain't so good.
Is it? Do you have 2 copies of Lunar Pool?
No,
over
I
there?
do not. It's Lunar Pool by a company named FCI. It's one of those pool emulator games.
You
I don't know.
played it.
No, I have not.
Dick.
I have played Side Pocket, which is a very good pool video game translation. This is probably okay, I guess. I don't know. Did you want? Oh, you're not going to get the Pat Contry book?
I am. I was just looking at.
Oh, gee.
How much?
Oh, maybe I can just look it up on my app. I have an app. Oh, God. You did trip over the cord, you ninny. He tripped over the cord. I told him not to.
You did.
And then,
told me not to be a failure. How did that work out?
what did I tell you about? What did I tell you about talking to the? What was the line from Cars? God damn it! What did I tell you about talking to the defendants? To not to. Here we go. So what am I going to guess here? Lunar Pool for the Nintendo Entertainment System. It's probably a 2.5-star game. And according to Ultimate Nintendo, the Guide to the NES Library, 1985, written by Pat Contry, available online. It is a 3.5-star game. Well,
Right.
I'll kiss my ass.
You have any grits?
Yes, my grits are not for kissing. I'll read a little passage here. This fun and interesting spin on the classic pool game features oddly shaped tables with interesting angles and adjustable friction. And apparently it takes place on the moon. So, whatever. Yeah, it's a pool game. I'll probably still not ever play it. I'm sure it's very nice. And then what are you looking to tell me how much it costs?
I can't find it on the
You
eBay.
probably spelled
if you
lunar
want.
wrong. That's
I
why.
probably did.
No, it's PS2.
What is that?
You typed in PS2.
Oh, well then shut up.
Yeah, see?
It's NES.
Yeah, just type in Lunar Pool, and I think it's the only iteration of Lunar Pool ever. So narrowing the field down.
Pre-owned, card only.
I'm gonna say $6.99.
Yeah, you're not bad.
$5.95. Yeah, okay. Well, that's what they're asking for. And
That's
we're
what
gonna
right.
get it.
And who knows if it skyrockets up to $7?
No, thanks to this podcast.
Exactly. You are welcome.
FCI. Yeah, the developers that aren't going to get a dime off of the resales of these games. Anyway, so that's
Wait. Before we leave video game, we're going to tie video game back into sport for a second. So we know nothing about the Red Sox.
I know nothing.
They have a pitcher named Dave Price, who 2 years ago or 3 years ago was the actual, you loaded up the Brinks truck to get him here. He's one of these guys who has an amazing, always in it for the Cy Young, great career, except when it comes to the playoffs or big games. He's something with the Red Sox. He wins like 3 out of 4 out of 5 games, unless they're played against New York, and he's like won 1 out of 10 times. He's never won a playoff game. He recently had a really bad start, funny enough, against the Yankees. And this is a guy who averages $1 million per game that he starts. He's a pitcher. He will
Not a belly itcher.
He will start 30 games this year. So he's a $30 million a year guy. Lost to the Yankees, and he said it's because his hand was cramped up from playing Fortnite 7 hours the night before. He literally said, and everyone's like, dude, there are in your contract, and I know I played with actors who had in their contract if they knew they rode motorcycles or played hockey in the season, they couldn't do those things.
Just like Gronkowski can't wrestle during the football season.
Right, you're not supposed to do something that can physically injure you. Like, you can get injured anytime, blah, blah, blah. But, hey, and everyone's like, he should give $1 million back to the Sox because he had hand cramps from 7 hours the night before playing Fortnite. And he comes right out and says it. It's like, dude, you're 30-year-old guy making $30 million a year go to fucking bed the night before, or man up and go get hammered like Mickey Mantle and then come in and play baseball like a guy.
Oh, my God.
I mean, this is a guy, which I love. I was at my 8-year-old's baseball game a couple weeks ago as I talked about, praying for sweet death embrace. And some little kid comes up who's smaller than him, can't be more than 6, had the whole elbow pad over his arm, had batting gloves on both hands. And I'm like, dude, seriously? And my favorite thing, do you know, and I don't know if it's true, but it's been attributed to Mickey Mantle being late to get to Yankee Stadium from golfing, and he literally ran right in and never took his golfing glove off and went 4 for 5 that day and like, fuck it, I'm keeping it. And that was the birth of batting gloves. Whether that's true or not doesn't get in the way of a good story. Do you have a video pick, a red box? Congratulations, by the way, to Joe, to his beloved wife. Finished NCIS, all 15 seasons, done. Bam! On to Blue Bloods.
Dedication. I guess my Netflix pick is an odd one. It's a stand-up special, if you want to call it that. It is. But it's making a lot of press, and I heard about it through Twitter, and it was on my Netflix screen, so I decided to watch it. It was Hannah Gadsby, Nanette, and it's she's an Australian, or specifically Tasmanian, not like the Tasmanian devil, but she's from Tasmania, and she's a comic. She's been a comic for like 15 years, and I hadn't heard of her before this special, but I watched it because people were raving about it on Twitter. And long story short, she is an out lesbian. She talks about, she talks about how her comedy's been self-deprecating, and how basically all of this self-deprecation has led her to believe that what she's doing is not, like, because of getting into comedy and being self-deprecating about her condition, and even like joking about like being raped and molested, and making light of that in the past, has frozen her in this time, like in that moment. Like, she can't move past that as an adult. So she's like, in the special, she says, I have to quit comedy. Like, this is likely my last special, because I can't be a comedian and be self-deprecating, because it doesn't serve my purpose. It doesn't tell my story the way I wanted to tell it. It's not funny to me anymore, and I'm butchering the sentiment. But it's an odd watch, and I don't know if I can tell by my description, maybe your response, that you may not want to watch this, because it's kind of a bummer. It was actually like very powerful to watch. I got through the whole thing. She does not lay off the straight white males too much. She's an art major too, so she goes on this rant about Pablo Picasso and how he molested a 14-year-old girl. It's not a laugh riot, but she turns like comedy, like she gets into the structure of how jokes are told, how she goes into comedy, why she went into comedy, and how it's like not. It's not worth it anymore to do what she's been doing for 15 years. She's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I can't do this anymore, because it's sort of infantilized her. Like, she's like an adolescent. She's like a teenage person who is stuck in sort of arrested development. Like, she can't move forward, because every bit's got to be about her being lesbian and her, having to survive, being a survivor and being a victim and all of this stuff. And it's just like, I can't make jokes about this anymore. But watch it.
I'm gonna go walk in front of a bus now,
right?
And I tried to blow through our awful stuff about.
Well, I'm trying to get to my awful stuff. All right.
It is. No, I'll put that on the. Nah, I think you did it enough justice where I'm gonna. But it does. No, I get that it's like, okay, she's not helping her own cause to move. She put herself in an awful Groundhog Day situation, reliving that over and over.
Right. I mean, imagine it's like being like Carrot Top, except not headlining Vegas every night. You're stuck in the hole of having to do the same thing over and over again.
And being really buff.
Well, yeah, she's not that either.
Okay.
And she makes that a point as well. But it's if you want if you want like a different view of stand-up comedy and sort of like be bummed out about stand-up comedy for a little bit, watch this. It's a bad advertisement for a comedy special. But as a one woman show, it's very powerful. As a stand-up comedy special, not so much.
Okay, I get it. Okay, so my pick also isn't a laugh riot. I would suggest, of course, the Chris Nolan, Christian Bale Batman trilogy. Highly recommend it. You know what? Maybe I'll just stick with that. Or The Godfather, or even Heat. Those were all amazing. But what I just watched and I put for my pick, it's really interesting. It's called, I think it's pronounced Elstree, Elstree, 1976. And what it is, it's a documentary about circling around 5 or 6 or 7 bit players from the original Star Wars A New Hope. Huh. And it's guys who, a couple bigger people, it focuses on the guy who played, Boba Fett in Empire, but it talks with Darth Vader, the original Darth Vader, who was a professional bodybuilder. It talked with a couple of the guys, one of the guys who was a pilot on the raid. On his only scene was, he was only in one scene, and it was the raid on the Death Star.
Right. He got blown up real good.
He got blown up real good. Yeah, he was one of the people who got blown up, but was taking the lead and his first squadron in before Luke comes in and stuff like that.
Was he the fat guy? He
was not. He was not the fat guy with the beard. A couple people who were background people when at the end of the movie, when they're getting their medals and they're walking through all the troops and it's a guard who just stood here and he tells the story. His visor fell down over his face and literally broke his nose, but he had to just stand there. It's blood's dripping. And Mark Hamill, and they keep showing this in super slow-mo because Mark Hamill kind of looks over to see what the hell's that going on, but it's still in a smile. And a lot of these guys, it was very slow paced at the beginning. The guy who plays Greedo. Greedo.
You're thinking of The Godfather.
You see how I'm getting blurred together? But it tells the whole story. Now, here's what's really interesting. There's and it was slow paced. It took a while to get into it. I'm like, okay, let me fast forward, which I didn't, but let me get to where you guys are signing at Comic-Cons and talking about, this is their life. They did 3 days of shooting in 1976, and they still have a living. Of course, not Darth Vader. I mean, he was Darth Vader throughout the whole trilogy, but a couple of these people truly were just in the background. And one guy, Lucas liked, and he ended up using him in a couple other movies.
Like Willow or
but really
Indiana
tiny.
Jones.
Right. He was in Indiana Jones. He was in the background for a couple other things. So this was the most interesting thing. There are people in the movie who were credited on the end credits, who you never see their face. You never see Greedo. You never see Boba Fett. You never see Darth Vader. You never see, I guess the biggest star was Baker, the guy who played R2-D2.
Oh, Kenny Baker.
And they all talked about him oh my God, the money he made at these things and stuff. But all those guys have credits in the movie. Well, all these extras who weren't credited, but you see their face, there is this hierarchy where the people who are credited in the movie don't think that those people should be allowed to go to trade shows and to Comic-Cons because, look, they weren't even in the credits. And the other people are like, you see my face. Absolutely anybody can show up and say, oh, yeah, I was Boba Fett. Oh, yeah, I was Darth Vader. Oh, yeah, I was, this, that, the other thing. And it was funny listening to the two sides, back and forth.
Who played the Gonk droid?
That was played by, interesting enough. No, and what's really funny is the first half of the movie are these guys' backstories, and it is, I can't believe I'm bringing it all the way around. I'm putting it right in your wheelhouse. I'm teeing this up for you, Joe. It's a bunch of Skipper Dans.
Wow. Yeah, Skipper Dan is a reference to a Weird Al song about a guy who goes to Juilliard and studies to become a great actor, and he lands a gig as the Jungle Cruise Ride tour guide.
And that's what a couple of these guys have done. Hamlet. I don't know what the British version of Broadway is, but
The West End.
The West End. They've done Hamlet, and London. They've done this. They've trained here. This one guy from, the U.S. did some acting stuff here, went over there to train for a year, and his first job was, working in, a bit character in Star Wars. And a couple of them, it turns out that they went to trade shows. They didn't know it was a big thing. This is like in the 80s, and they saw a Star Wars thing. And the guy's like, oh my God, that's me, who had action figures made of them. Like this one woman. And it's really funny. And it's hard to picture her. She didn't age well.
Oh.
Didn't age well. But she was one of the hot ish alien creatures in the cantina. With this, they have this mold on her head.
Right. Did she have the tentacles coming out of her head?
Yeah. And it's like, and then it turns out that she also had like one shot as Christopher Reeves and Margot Kidder are walking through the bullpen going home for the night. And this girl knocks on the window from her office and says goodnight to them. And it's funny because she was a friend of Christopher Reeves who used to live back in London. And he basically said, yeah, I'm going to get you a role in the movie. So he got her like the one line in the movie. So it's the same thing. She's only done a couple movies, but they were the biggest movies in the history of cinema when they came out.
Right. It's kind of like the guy who played Fredo.
Right. So except this one's alive. She probably looks about as good as the guy who played Fredo.
Oh.
And it's an interesting watch. It's not like a laugh ride. When I read the breakdown of it, I'm like, oh man, this is interesting. And it's like, people who spend 3 or 4 days on the set who still, have a living in the Star Wars universe today. But a couple of these people went to shows and they're like, dude, that's me. What do you mean it's me? And they like, that's a character I played in Star Wars. And then people are like, oh man. And again, one of these pilots, for some reason wasn't credited, but even had a line in it. And these guys who play Boba Fett don't think he has a right to show up because he's taking away. We're the real actors. You never saw our faces. You never heard our real voices. But just because you saw this guy's face and could hear the words coming out of his mouth, we were credited. We were on the scrolling credits. They were just ensemble cast. They weren't. And so it was a little bit interesting to see, that all these years later.
It sounds like an interesting watch. Probably more interesting than the depressing stand-up special that I suggested, Hannah Gadsby's and Annette. One final thing I do want to mention that I did finally watch Shaun of the Dead. So anyways, I watched it.
And?
It's great.
Okay, then we're going to have to do...
We're not doing a Shaun of the Dead sideshow.
We
I watched
might
one.
do a Simon Pegg, sideshow.
I have to watch more Simon Pegg. I haven't watched Hot Fuzz. I haven't watched...
How many... And honestly, Shaun of the Dead, it's one of those things where you go back and you notice so many more things. And one of the quick, asides to that, the apocalypse has started. And he's in the little convenience store, and he's looking at something, and he slips, and he almost falls, but he doesn't realize because he's still reading it. It's like blood from all the dead people
there's
around
like bloody
him.
handprints on the door that he's opening,
because he's lost in his own whatever he's looking at type thing.
Yeah, like he's just like a hungover or something.
He
just
has
like
no idea that the apocalypse is upon them.
It's so great, and the ending's like nice too.
When he keeps his buddy like
don't give it away.
Dude, the movie's 15 years old.
Hey, I hadn't seen it until just now. There might be other me's out there.
There
God
might.
forbid.
Oh, please. If they're as sexy as you, I'll take it. I'll be the meat and Joe sandwich.
# me too. Please.
If you had a clone of yourself and you had sex, would that be masturbation? These are the things.
Wasn't that a joke at the end of Austin Powers 2? It's not cheating.
If you're right. One funny thing, awful thing, the horse head in The Godfather, actual horse head from a dog food company.
Yeah.
Dude, that's
hardcore, man.
That's fucked.
Yeah. Hey, they didn't have CGI back then.
No.
Star Wars was still 4 years away.
And that's the other
5 years away, actually. Yeah.
You know, the thing about The Godfather, like Citizen Kane broke all these ways of shooting. You know, I mean, there was never upshots before and stuff
Right.
like that. That was one of the big things about the thing about The Godfather. It completely changed. I mean, you don't have Heat. You don't have, you go down the list, Goodfellas and stuff like that. You don't have,
Well, like non-linear storytelling, and you know, it's
with the two. That's interesting
Yeah.
that you said they put them together
in chronological
in
order.
chronological thing, because that was the interesting thing about part two. It was two different movies woven together. You know, it was
Yeah.
like the backstory that they told throughout the whole. Anyways,
Yeah.
we got. So I'll end on the parenting tip of the week. We have the pool. It's been up and running. Today was the first day that the littlest one didn't want to go in the pool. And they was a little burnt out because I'm like, we're using this pool every goddamn day. And I made him use the pool. I'm like, no, you're coming out. We're skimming it. You're getting in it. It was a lot of money. And then once he got in it, he liked it. So my thing is, if you got a pool and you're going to say, I'm going to make him swim every day the pool can be used, be a man of your word and get the little asses in there.
Well said. Father of the Year. I'm calling it. It's only July, but I'm calling it. Kind of like the way you're calling France.
And you're calling Croatia?
I'm saying they're going to crush it. And I use that. I already used that joke
But
already.
it's still good.
All righty then.
You know?
Yeah.
You want another Helen Keller joke? Are we good?
Please. Save it for. Well, it is Helen Keller month on the Carnival Personnel Podcast, I guess. Whatever. Anyways, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Carnival Podcast, and apparently Instagram. Have you put up any? Do they allow nipple shots on Instagram? I think they don't allow that. So
We're going to find out now.
And what else is there? I don't think there's a whole lot. Any more Beyond It gigs to plug, or is that September?
No, that is September.
What about the Mass Pirates? There's a game coming up this week.
There's a game coming up Saturday. Absolutely anybody who accidentally hears this who wants lower bowl, the face value on the tickets is $50. I will give as many tickets to anybody who tweets at us saying, I would like to go. I will guarantee not only will you go, I will put you on the field for the opening introduction.
I thought you were going to say that for the first drive.
Like, you know what? Seriously, you probably could. I probably could have that.
You want an odd or an even number?
With all the news, I did not want to forget to remind you, dude. Don't forget.
Oh, for real?
Scratch it.